What happened in the year 1957? Everything I talk about in this video is specific to the year 1957. Before the main feature, I'd like to tell you about the comics and cartoons that debuted this year. Comic strip debuts of 1957. Andy Capp. This is an extremely funny comic strip from England that also became popular in America. The name of the character is a play on the word handicap, which is exactly what Andy is to his hard-working wife, Flo. He doesn't work. He's always drinking, gambling, and smoking. He flirts with other girls at the bar. Andy really isn't a very good husband to Flo, who cleans houses for a living. They occasionally get into big, cartoony fights. Still, the two like each other. Although kids can read the comic strip, it certainly wasn't made with the intention of being put into kiddie cartoon shows. It's Only a Game. Charles Schulz, creator of the legendary Peanuts, made this sports-themed cartoon panel that only ran until 1959. Why did it flop? Peanuts had been around since 1950 and was doing well at the time. He also did a Christian-themed cartoon panel called Young Pillars for Youth magazine, beginning in 1956. Schulz had the star power, but It's Only a Game only appeared in newspapers 4 times a week. A lot of newspapers weren't interested in carrying a panel that couldn't appear Monday through Friday and Sunday. On top of that, Peanuts grew increasingly popular by the late 1950s, so he needed to concentrate more on that strip. Of the 3 comics he was working on at the time, It's Only a Game got the axe. The characters in this strip look a lot like the Peanuts children, but are mostly adults. Miss Peach, a great comic strip. Miss Peach was the lead character of the strip, but the kids are the real stars. She is a likable school teacher who usually sets up the punchlines for her students. During the school year, the strip is set inside Kelly School. During the summer months, the location was changed to a summer camp, Camp Kelly. The strip ran until 2002. On Stage. Later retitled to Mary Perkins on Stage in 1961, and is better known by that title. It was created by Leonard Starr, who previously worked on comic books. This strip was a success for him, and it ran through 1979. He ended the strip only because he got the chance to take over the Little Orphan Annie comic strip, a more lucrative job. On the outside, it would seem like just another soap opera strip. A woman comes to New York to become an actress. Yawn. In fact, it had a lot of adventure and humor in it. Mary's stories were quite fun to follow, and gave you some suspense while never going to a very dark place. Sir Bagby. I mentioned this strip not because it was popular. It wasn't. But it's a curiosity. It actually ran for 10 years in a small number of American newspapers. The strip was set in a fictional medieval kingdom, with its main character being a knight. It had a kooky cast of characters including a king, a wizard, a jester, and others. The strip of Sir Bagby resembled the earlier strip of King Aru that ran from 1950 to 65. Neither one of these strips were extremely popular. However, The Wizard of Id debuted in 1964 and became a smash success, still running as of 2023. Timing is everything, and apparently The Wizard of Id came out when people were ready for that kind of humor. Sir Bagby, on the other hand, has barely seen the light of day since 1967, only being reprinted in the Comics Review magazine. Comic book debuts of 1957. The Charlton publisher introduced their version of Billy the Kid this year. He made his first appearance in Masked Raider number 6. Pretty soon, Billy the Kid took over the series, and from number 9 to 153, the series was put in his name, lasting through 1983. This was a fictional but good version of the real-life outlaw. In the comics, Billy had reformed and became a hero. Harvey Comics introduced Hot Stuff the Little Devil with his very own comic book series. He became one of Harvey's most popular characters. His features resembled Casper the Friendly Ghost, as did his premise. Hot Stuff was a mischievous but friendly little devil. He often performed good deeds that irritated his demon kinfolk. These were good, funny, kid-safe comics, and not the least bit evil, despite the fact that a devil is the main character. Stumbo the Giant is one of the unheralded characters of Harvey Comics, but appeared quite a bit in their titles. He is best known as a backing feature in the Hot Stuff title, but he was given his very own comic book series from 1963 to 66. He's a funny, friendly giant, drawn well with good stories, but he just didn't stay in the public consciousness like Casper, Richie Rich, Hot Stuff, and Baby Huey. DC Comics introduced some new characters this year. The Challengers of the Unknown team made their first appearance in Showcase number 6. It was created by Jack Kirby. Later on, in 1961, Marvel Comics had their first major success with the Fantastic Four. Jack Kirby worked on that title with Stan Lee, who continues to receive sole creator credit. One of the biggest disputes between Kirby and Lee in their infamous feud is that the Fantastic Four ripped off Challengers of the Unknown. This argument certainly has merit. DC also took over the title Black Hawk from Quality Comics, beginning with number 108. Since then, Black Hawk is largely thought of as a DC property, although it had existed almost 16 years before they got a hold of it. The Black Hawk Squadron was an elite team of aviators and commandos who fought during World War II and the Cold War against a wide variety of menaces. Another big step DC took was the creation of Easy Company in 1957. They were a U.S. Army combat unit during World War II. They first appeared in Our Army at War number 61, but weren't hugely popular at the time. That changed in 1959 when their leader became Sergeant Rock just 20 issues later. It wasn't until 1977 that Sergeant Rock got his own title, but Sergeant Rock and Easy Company were some of the most popular war comics ever made. Another big DC character introduced was Captain Cold, a villain for the Flash in Showcase number 8. He is still one of the most popular Flash villains. A famous French comic book series came out this year called Michel Vaillant. It is about a French race car driver and sportsman who competes mostly in Formula One. These are adventure comics that became hugely popular in France and other countries as well. In America, his name is often Americanized to Michael Valiant. Over the years, France has put the character into a live-action TV series, a cartoon series, even a live-action movie. It is still more popular in France and the rest of Europe than it is in America, but the comics certainly have its American fans. Although it's a fictional series, it is highly praised for its realism of automobiles and the racing world. Cartoon debuts of 1957. The animated musical segment, Let's All Go to the Lobby, is first played in theaters, signaling the intermission breaks. It was directed by Dave Fleischer, formerly of Fleischer Studios, famous for their Betty Boop, Popeye, and Superman cartoons on which Dave worked. This little 40-second cartoon ditty quickly became a major pop culture icon and has been heavily imitated and spoofed. Who doesn't like singing and dancing concessions? It has even been selected for preservation in the U.S. national film industry by the Library of Congress. For all of time, people will be able to see a quality print of this happy little commercial. The Woody Woodpecker Show from Walter Lantz debuts on television. This was quite a good show. Not only did it feature the classic Walter Lantz cartoons, but Walter himself appeared a number of times throughout the show with fascinating segments on animation and history of all topics. It ran on network TV for 20 years, and reruns of the show were played in syndication for years after. It also allowed Walter to keep releasing new cartoons in theaters until 1972, that would later be put in the show. Walter Lantz also debuted some new characters this year. Wendy and Breezy were father and son bears who made their first appearance in Father and Son, a Woody Woodpecker cartoon. Wendy is a big, full of himself bear, idolized by his little cub. Despite the fact that they are familiar characters for the studio, they only made 5 cartoons, with the last being released in 1959. Another Walter Lantz character that you'll hear people talk about is Pepito Chiquito, but he made only one appearance in The Bongo Punch. In this cartoon, Pepito Chiquito is a Mexican fighting chicken who would rather play the bongo. Merrie Melodies was another big studio that introduced a one-shot character with Millicent, the fat girl rabbit who chases Bugs Bunny in Rabbit Romeo. She did, however, make another appearance in the 1979 TV special Bugs Bunny's Thanksgiving Diet, and since then was in an episode of New Looney Tunes. However, in the classic era of Looney Tunes Merrie Melodies, she appeared only once. Disney came up with a unique character this year. His name was Fresh Up Freddy, and he was the animated bird spokesman for 7-Up commercials. 7-Up was also sponsoring Disney's Zorro TV show at the time. What kind of bird was Fresh Up Freddy supposed to be? It's never specified, but most likely a rooster. He was actually a mashup of 2 characters from Disney's much earlier film, The Three Caballeros. Panchito Pistoles was a Mexican rooster, and the Araquan bird that was purposely made to be unique. Put them together, and you have Fresh Up Freddy. Famous Studios collapsed in late 1956, becoming Paramount Cartoon Studio. In 1957, Paramount started releasing their first ultra-cheap cartoons. Although a few of the older characters like Casper the Friendly Ghost, Herman and Catnip, and Baby Huey were kept on, budgets were slashed to ribbons, and the cartoons don't look or feel much like the earlier entries. The Adventures of Tintin makes its TV debut. This cartoon series was actually based on the comic book series from Belgium, one of the most popular comics in Europe of the 20th century. Tintin is a boy reporter who has fantastic adventures with his little dog Snowy. Made originally for TV in Belgium and France, it was soon shown on American television and had big-name voice actors like Dallas McKennon, Paul Frees, and Larry Harmon. The MGM Cartoon Studio, famous for Tom and Jerry and Droopy, closes down. It was not a wise move for MGM, but 2 of its key animator directors, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, immediately started their own company, and soon had fantastic success. MGM closing down was actually a blessing in disguise for Hanna-Barbera, and the best thing to ever happen to them. This led to the first ever Hanna-Barbera production, The Rough and Ready Show. It ran for 3 seasons, and although it was a success, it wouldn't be a major success like Hanna-Barbera would soon have after this. Odd enough, this show has rarely been released on home media. The characters of Rough and Ready have become obscure compared to Hanna-Barbera's top stars like Yogi Bear, the Flintstones, and Scooby-Doo. That's a shame, because this is a good cartoon. Ruff is a smart little cat, and his best friend is Reddy, a not-too-bright dog. Tom Terrific makes its TV debut as a segment of Captain Kangaroo. Although this was made by the Terrytoon Studio, the animation was of significantly lower quality than their earlier successes of Mighty Mouse and Heckle and Jekyll. Tom Terrific was cheap. Dirt cheap. The cartoon has its fans, but make no mistake, this is not like real Terrytoons. Each episode was split into 5 parts, shown Monday through Friday. There were 26 episodes in all. Captain Kangaroo continued to rerun the cartoons for many years. Tom Terrific, despite his cult popularity, has never been given an official home video release. Colonel Bleep makes history as the first TV cartoon made in color. It's amazing that this cartoon is still known today by so many people, because it's quite unusual and very rare. 100 of these cartoons were made, each one ranging 3 to 6 minutes in length. They were made by a small animation studio in Miami, Florida called Soundac. As of 2023, only 44 of these cartoons are known to exist in any form. 8 of these are only available in monochrome. What happened to Colonel Bleep? The Soundak studio closed down in the early 1970s. When moving the company's materials to a van, car thieves stole it. The contents of the van have never turned up. Part of what was stolen was Colonel Bleep's master copies. Colonel Bleep is known to have last aired on television in 1971. The copyrights of the show's episodes lapsed without being renewed in 1985. Anything that still exists of the show wasn't preserved the best, so video quality varies. The cartoon ran on TV in syndication, originally as a segment of the show Uncle Bill's TV Club. What's this cartoon all about? It's a bit out there. Colonel Bleep is a friendly alien who comes to Earth after the first nuclear explosion in 1945 scares his home planet. He has a triangle head, skinny body, and often wears a transparent bubble helmet with a helicopter propeller and 2 antennae. He makes friends with a caveman named Scratch, who was transported from the past to the present by the nuclear bomb. Can nuclear bombs do that? If that wasn't goofy enough, the pair team up with a cowboy hat wearing puppet named Squeak, who, ironically, is still a cartoon. The trio establish an island base and protect the Earth from alien threats. This cartoon is a different kind of deal, but it had its fans back then and even now. From the Soviet Union came The Snow Queen, an animated musical fantasy film. It was based on the fairy tale by the Danish author Hans Christian Andersen. This cartoon movie has been seen all over the world in many languages and is common to find on home media. It's that well liked. When it was first released in America in 1959, it featured the voices of Sandra Dee and Tommy Kirk. The release of this film in the US was seen as a revolutionary moment in the Cold War. It was the first time tensions between the two countries were relaxed since World War II ended. Since then, the voices and soundtrack to the film have been changed numerous times. By the way, this is surprisingly good animation coming from the Soviet Union. The quality of the animation itself rivals what Disney and MGM had been doing.